Hello everybody, it's Nick here with Nick Tolman Music, and today we are going to continue our beginner guitar lesson series using Hal Leonard's Guitar Method Book 1. Let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to be looking at page 9 in the Hal Leonard Method. And as always, please check out my Patreon page if you want to say thank you for the content that you're receiving with these free lessons here on YouTube, or you want to support Nick Tolman Music and helping future content to be made. Please consider becoming a patron today. Alright, so on page 9, we're continuing our new notes that we learned on the second string, which are B open on the second string, C with our first finger, first fret on the second string, and D, which is our third finger, third fret on the second string. All right. We're also going to incorporate our notes that we learned in the first few lessons, which are E, F, and G. So E with our open first string, F, which is first finger on the first fret of the first string, and G, which is our third finger, third fret, third string. All right. So the first couple exercises are just going to be using our new notes, B, C, and D. And then the last 3 exercises on the page are going to use all 6 notes that we've learned so far. So it's going to be a little more complicated as we switch between strings. No problem, we're going to walk you through it today. So starting on exercise 12, let's go ahead and jump in with our metronome at 72. This is a really common starting place for me. I like this tempo for starting out on most of these exercises. If you find that it's too fast for you, even at 72, don't hesitate to go slower. If you need to put your metronome at 60 or even slower, that's not a problem, all right? So here we go. Exercise 12 at 72 on the metronome. 1, 2, ready, and play. 2, 3, 4, off. Very straightforward. It's just quarter notes and then a whole note at the end, but it's just utilizing those 3 notes on the second string, B, C, and D. If you're having trouble with this exercise, I'd consider slowing the tempo down further, but also utilizing a little bit of chunking, so breaking the music into smaller chunks. Maybe focus just on the first measure for a while. Repeat that as many times as you need to, and then just the second measure. Once you feel comfortable with those individually, then put them together. Make the chunk a little bit bigger. Repeat this process until you're comfortable with the whole exercise. All right, let's go ahead and jump it up to 120 on the metronome so you can hear what it sounds like at a faster tempo. 1, 2, ready, play. 2, 3, 4, off. There's a nice note at the top of the page, and we've talked about this in previous lessons, but again, it emphasizes starting slowly and gradually building your tempo to be comfortable with it. I've absolutely followed that advice. The other thing is if you're getting fuzzy or unclear notes, if you're getting buzzy notes or dead notes, it just says move your left hand finger slightly until you get a clear sound. That's a good approach. We've talked about the positioning with your fingers, and you know where they're supposed to be. Sometimes if you just get the dead sound, just kind of move your finger a little bit within that fret and find, oh, there's a place that the note speaks better, and just remembering where that is. All right. So let's go ahead and try exercise 13. This is 72 on the metronome. 1, 2, ready, and play. Note, half note. 2, 3, 4, off. All right. So that one utilizes quarter notes, half notes, and a whole note. All right. So just being aware of the different lengths, the different values of note, making sure that those are happening, right? A quarter note is getting 1 beat, a half note is getting 2 beats, and a whole note is getting 4 beats. If you're still confused on this concept, please check out my video on the staff and note values. It will help explain more of how this works and will kind of give you a review on this concept. All right. Let's go and jump the metronome up. Here is 120 and exercise 13. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. Half note, half note. 1, 2, 3, 4, off. And there it is. It's straightforward, it's short, it's simple, but take it as slow as you need to be successful before trying it at faster tempos. All right, so let's take a look at 14. All right, so this is telling you, you have learned 6 notes now, 3 on the first string and 3 on the second string. In the following exercises, you will be moving from string to string. As you are playing one note, look ahead to the next and get your fingers in position. All right, so yeah, this is some good advice. You are going to be moving between the first and second string, which is going to be new. It might kind of throw you for a loop at first. That's okay. Again, the answer is take it slow, take it smooth, and slowly and gradually build your tempo, and that will help solidify your muscle memory for these notes and where they go, okay? So exercise 14 is very straightforward. It's just going to walk straight up the notes, okay? So starting on the B, B, C, D, E, F, G, all right? Now eventually, this is very similar to like a scale, okay? It's just moving straight up the notes that we know. I also like to play this one in reverse, okay? So practice going back down. So I'm starting on the last note of exercise 14 and going backwards. So G, F, E, D, C, B. And you can practice this as quickly as you want. Right? The idea is that you get used to moving up and down these notes that you know. All right? So let's go and turn the metronome on. We're going to play it with the whole notes as it's written. But here is 72 on the metronome, exercise 14. Go. 1, 2, ready, and play. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Off. Let's go ahead and try it backwards. Here we go. Ready, and 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Off. And there it is, right? So if you're having trouble when you're switching to the next string, again, maybe isolate that spot that the treble spot is, turn that into a chunk, and focus on just drilling that over and over again, right? And focus on building that until it's nice and smooth. Okay, let's go ahead and try this at a little faster tempo. So here is 120 on the metronome. We're going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Off. And backwards. So starting at the end and moving down the scale. 1, 2, ready, play. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Good. If you're really comfortable with it at this fast tempo, maybe turn it into half notes. 1, 2, half notes, go. Half note, half note, note, half note, and down. One, 2, half notes, go. Half note, note, 1, 2, and down. maybe even quarter notes. 1, 2, quarters, go. All right. From there, you can build the tempo even faster if you want to practice it faster. There's no limit to how fast you can play this, so just keep practicing it until you can do it really fast. It'll be great. All right, so let's take a look at exercise 15. Now, this exercise tends to be the first one that starts to throw people a little bit because it's kind of jumping. It's kind of going back and forth between these two strings, and it might get a little confusing. Again, that's okay. If it's really giving you a hard time, slow the metronome down as slow as you need to make it nice and smooth and accurate and consistent, and then build it up. So here is 72 on the metronome, exercise 15. 1, 2, and ready and play. Half note, half note, half note, half note, note, half note, half note, 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 half note, half note, half note, note, half note, note, note. 2, 3, 4, off. Okay, so there's a concept that we talked about early on, actually in like our I guess it was the second lesson in this, but really the first real lesson in this series. And that concept is this with guitar, and that is if you don't have to move something, talking about your left hand, especially your fingers in your left hand, if you don't have to move it, then don't move it. And this is going to be really helpful with this one, and it's the best way to practice it, okay? So the first two measures of this exercise, we just have open strings. B, E, B, E. Nothing fancy, okay? But in the third measure, all of a sudden now we have C, E, C, E. Now, you can just leave that C down, especially if your finger is way up on the tip. It should work. And that's where it needs to be anyway. This is a really good way to check yourself and make sure that your fingers are enough on the tips, all right? So you should be able to play C and just leave that C down when you play the E instead of taking your finger off, right? C, E, C, E. Now, if you go to do that and it sounds like this, C is great, but then the E is, what's happening? Well, your first finger is not on the tip enough. It's laying down too much and it's touching the E string. If that happens, it's going to kill the sound, right? So your first finger needs to be on C, but it needs to not be touching any other string. Okay? So this is a great exercise for that. That's what you definitely want to work on, okay? Now you're going to move, do that for two measures, and then you go to the fifth measure where we have D. Same thing. You should be able to leave that third finger down and go D, E, D, E without moving fingers at all. Okay, same concept as we talked about with the C, but now you're doing it with the third finger. And then we move to the second line and the second measure of that line. Now we have a D and an F. Now, again, you can do this without moving fingers. You have your D, your third finger on the second string, and then you move your first finger to the F here on the first string. You should be able to leave those two fingers down. And play both of those measures like that. That's the best way to practice this, okay? And it's something to work on. So keep those things in mind. Again, with this exercise, if you don't have to move fingers, then don't move them. We don't want to see a bunch of movement that doesn't have to happen, all right? All right, so let's jump this up to 120 on the metronome. You can hear what it sounds like at a faster tempo. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. And there it is. Start out slow and gradually build. You'll have no problems. All right, here we go. Here is exercise 16. And nothing fancy on this one. We're just utilizing all 6 notes. We have quarter notes and half notes. It's called world beat. Let's try it at 72 on the metronome. 1, 2, ready, and play. All right, so that's world beat at 72 on the metronome. There's not a ton to it, but there are some things that might be helpful for you as you go to practice this. Now, we talked about chunking earlier as a practice tool, and this is great, especially for this kind of exercise. Now, you'll notice that if you look at like the first 2 measures, okay, so the first 2 measures of 16, we have this. That is a really important chunk for this because a lot of what you're playing throughout is kind of based off of this kind of movement, all right? So I might spend some time just practicing those first 2 measures. As slowly as I need to, and then slowly build it up. Right? And build it up as quickly as you need to. You'll notice that the first 2 measures of the second line are identical, right? They're totally the same. So as soon as you've done that, you've already learned like half the song, okay? Now, but a lot of the movement that we see throughout the rest of it is similar type of movement. It's just this like 1 to 3 kind of movement that's taking place. Now, if we look at the 3rd measure of the top line, we start at G. All right, so that might be the next chunk that I work on. And really just kind of drill that, making sure that it's smooth, connected, good sound, everything. And then I'm going to add it to the first chunk and try the whole first line. Okay, really kind of straightforward. Practice that as many times as I need to get it just right. And then we move to that second line. We've already learned that first chunk. And then in the 3rd measure of the second line, which is measure 8, I suppose, it starts out just the same. It starts out just the same as that first chunk that we learned. And then it changes a little bit in the last 2 measures. Right, so I might just try those last 3 measures a few times. Right, now breaking the music into chunks like this is effective because you're not wasting time on stuff that you already know really well, okay? One of the problems with always starting at the beginning of a song and going to the end is that you tend to get really, really good at the first bit of the song, and then as you get in and mistakes start to happen, they kind of get overlooked as you go, and then you never get to focus on those areas, all right? So the idea of breaking it into chunks is that you isolate areas and make sure each individual spot in the exercise or in the song is solid, is good, is clear, and then you put it all together, all right? So here is exercise 16 at 120 on the metronome. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. And there it is. All right, so that's everything for today's lesson. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll do my best to help you out and answer your questions. And as always, please check out my Patreon page. You can always check out my website at www.nicktolmanmusic.com. I also have extra exercises and things like that available on there for download, and that will help you out as you're learning guitar. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We will catch you next time. Thanks.